मानुषी संवाद में आप सबका स्वागत है. As you can see, the topic for this evening is implications of PM Modi's G20 commitments and his invitation to Pope to visit India and whatever else happened during their meeting in Rome. पहले हम इसी की बात करेंगे और मेरे साथ इस सवाल पे बात करने के लिए दो खासे एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, तो आपको बहुत कुछ समझने और ज्ञान की बातें मिलेंगी. एक तो हमारे बहुत प्रिय मित्र, पुराने मित्र और प्रिय मित्र राजीव मल्होत्रा. नमस्ते राजीव जी, वेलकम. And another dear friend, Dr. Gautam Sen, लंदन स्कूल ऑफ इकोनॉमिक्स में प्रोफेसर रहे हैं. राजीव को तो मैं बताने की जरूरत नहीं है, राजीव कौन है ये तो जग जाहिर है. और हमारे ऑडियंसेस के लिए, क्योंकि डॉक्टर गौतम सेन नए हैं इसलिए बता रही हूँ कि लंदन में है पर खालिस भारतीय हैं, खालिस भारतीय, और पासपोर्ट भी इंडियन पासपोर्ट रखा है. इन्होंने इतने साल बिता दिए लंदन में पर अपना पासपोर्ट नहीं बदला, और हिंदुस्तान में क्या हो रहा है उसकी मिनट टू मिनट खबर रखते हैं, बंगाल की, बांग्लादेश की, पाकिस्तान की और हिंदुस्तान की. तो with these two experts we are going to be discussing this. I just want to pose a few teasers about Modi's visit to the Vatican and his meeting with Rome, with the Pope. एक तो मुझे नहीं मालूम कि ये जो G20 समिट में इतने हेड्स ऑफ स्टेट थे, बाकी कितने हेड्स ऑफ स्टेट पोप के दरबार में वैसे पेश हुए जैसे मोदी जी हुए. और ये फोटो देखिए, दर्शकों ने देखी होगी, फिर वैसे काफी हद तक गायब कर दी है. ये देखिए कैसे नमन कर रहे हैं, और ऐसे लगता है कि बस पूरा साष्टांग प्रणाम ही होने वाला है. ऐसे कौन हेड ऑफ स्टेट जाके पोप को मिलता है, वो भी उस धर्म के, या धर्म तो नहीं कहना चाहिए, क्रिश्चियनिटी के टॉप हेड को, जिनका खुला एजेंडा है हिंदुस्तान को क्रिश्चियनाइज करना, और वाहियात से वाहियात किस्म के अटैक हो रहे हैं चर्च द्वारा हमारी धार्मिक मान्यताओं पे. तो ये जो झुक के नमन कर रहे हैं, राजीव, आई डोंट नो हाउ यू रिस्पॉन्डेड, आई सॉ योर ट्वीट ऑन इट. तो मेरा तो खून खौल गया था. ये कोई सलीका नहीं है कि दरबारी की तरह आप पेश हो रहे हैं. और फिर दूसरा जो आत्मीयता वाला, उनसे जादू की झप्पी, मोदी जी की जो फेमस जादू की झप्पी होती है, और साथ में फिर उनको न्योता देते हैं कि आप भारत आइए. ये सबको मालूम है, जो लोग भी फॉलो करते हैं क्रिश्चियनिटी के कार्यकलाप, कि पिछले बार वाजपेयी के प्रधानमंत्री काल में जब इनसे पहले पोप हिंदुस्तान आए थे, तो उन्होंने खुलेआम घोषणा की थी कि 21वीं शताब्दी is going to be the century of harvesting of Hindu souls. यानी हिंदुस्तान को क्रिश्चियनाइज करने की ये शताब्दी होने वाली है. पूरे हिंदुस्तान को उनका एजेंडा है, और उनके फॉलोअर्स हिंदुस्तान में ऑलरेडी, साउथ में तो कह रहे हैं हमें दलितिस्तान दे दो, यानी अभी दलितों के नाम पे मांग रहे हैं, पर बहुत जल्दी ईसाइयों के नाम पे भी मांगेंगे. अभी ये फ्रंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैं उनकी, दलित के नाम पे, इसके नाम पे. और तब से हमें मालूम है, जब से पोप आए थे पिछले वाले, बहुत तेजी से कन्वर्जन्स का सिलसिला बढ़ा, प्लांटिंग ऑफ चर्चेस बहुत तेजी से बढ़ी, और अग्रेसिव कन्वर्जन्स होने शुरू हुए. मेरे बचपन में मुझे नहीं याद कि इतनी वाहियात किस्म की शब्दावली खुले आम क्रिश्चियंस, उनका हेट लिटरेचर जरूर होता था जो अंदरूनी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के लिए होता था, किंतु ये मैंने कभी नहीं देखा था खुलेआम इस तरह की गालियां दी जाए, हिंदू देवी देवताओं पे जिस तरह की अभद्र टिप्पणियां की जाए. अब तो खुलेआम उस तरह के अटैक होने लगे हैं. और बड़े मियाँ की तर्ज पर सुनिए छोटे मियाँ सुधांशु त्रिवेदी क्या कह रहे हैं टीवी पे. आशीष, चला पाओगे वो क्लिप?
एक स्टेट और मजेदार बात यह कि अगर आप जनरल नॉलेज में पढ़ेंगे कि दुनिया का सबसे छोटा देश कौन सा है, तो वो वेटिकन है, क्योंकि वहां पर शायद 1100-1200 लोग ही रहते हैं और उसे एक राज्य का दर्जे, एक राष्ट्र का दर्जा प्राप्त है। तो जो मोदी जी की मुलाकात हुई वो एक प्रकार से दो राष्ट्र प्रमुखों की मुलाकात है। मैं इसको एक सकारात्मक दृष्टि से लेता हूं कि मोदी जी ने जब अपनी विदेश नीति की शुरुआत की तो उन्होंने कई अभिनव प्रयोग किए। मैं उसके डिटेल में भी नहीं जा रहा हूं कि उससे पहले हमारी जो विदेश नीति होती थी वो केवल स्ट्रेटेजिक इकोनॉमिक इश्यूज के ऊपर रहती थी और डिप्लोमेटिक इश्यूज पर। अब उन्होंने कल्चरल इशू भी शुरू किया और आपने देखा कि जहां जहां वो गए भारतवंशी समुदाय के साथ और भारत के सांस्कृतिक संबंधों को लेकर भी उन्होंने इस प्रकार के कई अच्छे प्रयास किए। मैं इसको दो हेड ऑफ द स्टेट्स की मुलाकात के साथ साथ एक सकारात्मक दृष्टिकोण से यह भी मानता हूं कि उन्होंने सांस्कृतिक दृष्टि से भी यह कहने का प्रयास किया। और एक बात मैं यह भी कहूंगा, यह किस लिए महत्वपूर्ण है, क्योंकि क्रिश्चियनिटी की जड़ें भारत में यूरोप से ज्यादा पुरानी है। यह तक माना जाता है कि सबसे पुरानी जो चर्च है वो केरल में है। ठीक है, उसको लेकर एक मतभेद भी है, पर सेंट थॉमस फर्स्ट सेंचुरी में भारत आए थे और यूरोप में क्रिश्चियनिटी शुरू होती है जब किंग कॉन्स्टेंटाइन ने 324 एडी में क्रिश्चियनिटी को अपना राजधर्म बनाया, उसके बाद शुरू हुआ। इसका मतलब भारत में क्रिश्चियनिटी की जड़ें कम से कम 300 साल से ज्यादा पुरानी है। कहां से? उस वहां से जिस वेटिकन में आज की डेट में वहां है। तो भारत का भी एक अलग संबंध है। तो मैं कहना चाहता हूं कि भारत की एक बड़ी यूनिक आइडेंटिटी पूरी दुनिया में जानते क्या है? मजेदार बात यह है कि अगर आपसे पूछा जाए कि दुनिया में एक देश बताइए जिसपे इस धरती में पाए जाने वाले सारे रिलीजन मौजूद हों, तो सिर्फ भारत है। वो पारसी और ज़ोरोस्ट्रियन जो अपनी धरती से खत्म हो गए वो भारत में है। एकमात्र देश जिसके यहूदियों ने लिखा कि हमारे साथ कोई भेदभाव नहीं हुआ। इस्लाम के सारे फिरके सिर्फ भारत में हैं और क्रिश्चियनिटी में भी भले ही रोमन कैथोलिक, प्रोटेस्टेंट, ईस्टर्न ऑर्थोडॉक्स, सेवेंथ डे एडवेंटिस्ट में आपस में जो भी मतभेद हो, पर भारत में वो बिल्कुल सामंजस्य के साथ रहते हैं। तो ये भारतीय संस्कृति की जो अद्भुत क्षमता है, इसको लेकर भले ही लोग कुछ भी सांप्रदायिक आधार पर बोलते रहे, कहीं ना कहीं मोदी जी ने अपनी विदेश नीति में उसकी अभिव्यक्ति करने का भी प्रयास किया है।
जी
Rajiv, I don't know how you felt, but I just want to make two brief comments on this. Number one, एक तो ये झूठ है जो ये केरला में ओल्डेस्ट चर्च की बात कहते हैं। दूसरा, ये सरकारी एंडोर्समेंट के साथ एक नया हथियार दे दिया। वो तो हथियार मान के चलते ही थे, अब मोदी सरकार ने सरकारी एंडोर्समेंट के साथ ही हथियार दे दिया कि आप यहाँ के हैं। और ये जो बार बार कहते हैं कि सारे धर्म यहाँ है, कोई और देश बता दो, परंतु कोई और देश बता दो जिनमें जो मूल निवासी हैं, जो हिंदू सभ्यता या सिविलाइजेशन है, वो श्रिंक होते जा रही है। किसी ईसाई से कहलवा दीजिए कि वो इस मिट्टी से जुड़े हुए हैं, वो बाहर के ही मान्यताओं से और देश के टुकड़े करने वाली मान्यताओं से जुड़े। किसी मुसलमान से कहलवा दें अल्लाह ईश्वर तेरो नाम, हम ही चर्च की घंटियां बजाते हैं, वो तो बजाने को तैयार नहीं मंदिर की घंटियां। वो तो हमारे मंदिर लिप्त हों, हम सब हिंदू से क्रिश्चियन बने, कोई कह उसकी तैयारी है ईसाइयों की, और मुस्लिम्स की तैयारी है कि हम हर मंदिर तोड़ने को राजी हो जाएं और हर हिंदू या तो सर धड़ से अलग या कन्वर्ट हो जाए। तो ये क्या हमारी फॉरेन पॉलिसी, ये क्या कल्चरल डिप्लोमेसी चल रही है? राजीव, प्लीज इनलाइटन मी। मेरा तो ऐसे लग रहा था कान में कोई शीशा, गरम शीशा डाल रहा है, उससे भी इतनी तकलीफ ना होती जितने इस बयान से हुई मेरी। प्लीज राजीव, ऑल योर्स।
So this video I watched for the first time right now only. So I will tell you my thoughts. First of all, this gentleman, whoever he is, I don't know, but he's totally wrong. His history is wrong. Yes, the early Christians came and the Indians welcomed them, but that doesn't mean that there was no church in the Middle East where it started. Because while Vatican, which is Catholic, started in the 4th century with Emperor Constantine, but Catholic Vatican was not the first Christianity. The Greek Orthodox Church, as it is called, or just the Orthodox Church, was older, and the Syrian Christians were older. So the kind of Christian church that came to India before Catholicism, that same kind of Christian church also existed over there in the foreign countries. So it is firstly not that this was the first time. Okay? It's not true. Also, to have pride, that just because all the religions live in India, yes, it should be pride. We are very proud that we are very respectful and so on. But it is not a matter of safety for us that all the people who are living in the country, many of them are not happy that we are Hindus. Many of them want to convert us. आपके घर में कितने लोग पहुंच गए हैं जो आपको धोखा देना चाहते हैं? तो यू कुड से कि हमारी बहुत खुशी है, इट्स मैटर ऑफ प्राइड कि हम कितने लोग, कितने तरह के लोग हैं. It could also be a matter of stupidity. It could be a matter of stupidity because it means you have not learnt your history. आप ये भी कह सकते थे कि अंग्रेजों के ज़माने में कि देखो ये तो बड़ी खुशी की बात है कि फ्रेंच लोग भी बैठे हुए हैं इंडिया में कॉलोनी बनाकर, पोर्चुगीज भी लोग बैठे हैं, ब्रिटिश लोग भी आ गए, डच लोग भी आ गए, सब लोग आ गए, देखो जी कितनी खुशी की बात है. इट इज स्टूपिड. इट इज अ मैटर ऑफ बीइंग सेलिब्रेटिंग फॉर द रॉन्ग रीजन. या Now, I am for pluralism. I am for respect for all these traditions, but it has to be mutual. There have to be some rules. They should be not living with the agenda. And the agenda is not the Christianity. The Christian person in India is bad, but he's reporting to the foreign church. He's reporting to the foreign nexus. Bishops in India are appointed by the Vatican. Bishops are not appointed by the local community. It is not a democracy. The members of the church in Kerala or some place elect who their leader is. It is not like that. It is basically top down, appointed by foreign authority. So आपने कहा कि Vatican is a state, which is true. It is a member of United Nations. It is a state. So when Vatican appoints a bishop, it is like United States appointing a consulate, or Russia appointing a consulate, or Japan appointing a consulate. The appointee of a foreign head of state is a consulate. So you have to consider every church is like a consulate of the Vatican when it's a Catholic church. So ये ठीक तरह से समझना चाहिए. I don't think this gentleman understands his history, and I don't know whether the hosts of the show pointed it out or anybody else pointed it out, but he seemed very confident. And this kind of propaganda is very dangerous for a country where they do not understand world religions. एक तो ये point है. दूसरा point ये है कि मोदी जी is visiting and meeting the Vatican, the Pope, and bowing so low, like उनकी भक्ति के लिए he is an idol. हम उनको worship कर रहे हैं, उनके पैर छूना चाहते हैं. And the gesture from the Pope is आशीर्वाद कि हाँ बेटा ठीक है नरेंद्र भाई, बहुत अच्छा किया, तुम बहुत अच्छे लड़के हो. It's more like patronizing. Pope's attitude, body language is more like patronizing. He's not bending so much. He's just patronizing. हाँ ठीक है. Modi ji is really bending. This is not good optics. Optics, what it does, this along with, please come to India, is going to play in the wrong hands in the wrong way, because church will make a big propaganda out of it in India. Church will say कि आपको problem क्या है? मोदी जी ने हमको बुलाया है. देखिए मोदी जी भी झुक रहे हैं. So one has to be concerned about what is the misuse. अपनी तरफ से तो अच्छे दिल से उन्होंने किया होगा, लेकिन उसका क्या नतीजा निकलेगा, that is something to be discussed. And I think I would have, if I were in his shoes, or if I were advising him, I would say do the namaste standing straight, do the namaste like he often does when he meets people. He does सीधा नमस्ते करते हैं. He doesn't have to bow down. And this business of come to India also, there should be a discussion of what is India's official position towards Vatican's evangelism in India. Position honi chahiye. Like we have a position on Kashmir, we have a position on Pakistan and China, and ye wo sab hai hamari position. We have a position that foreign funding of people who are militant and anti-India terrorists is wrong. We have a position against it. There should be a very official position on foreign funded evangelism, and that position should be clarified when he meets the Pope. He should meet the Pope and say, this is our position. As far as the state visit and whatnot is concerned, it should be in the context of India should have demand also. So ek to main ye kehna chahta hu, but I have one more point to make, but I will stop and let Gautam also say something, and then I will come back and say some more.
Before I invite Gautam, 2-3 बातें मैं भी कहना चाहती हूँ. नंबर 1, देखिए क्रिश्चियनिटी की इज्जत करना, आप कह रहे हो वी वांट टू रिस्पेक्ट देम, पर फैक्ट इज कि वो हमें रिस्पेक्ट नहीं करते. वो हमें डिस्ट्रॉय करना चाहते हैं, उनका खुलेआम एजेंडा है, जैसे इस्लाम का खुलेआम एजेंडा है। मैं आज बिल्कुल तैयार नहीं हूं ऐसे रिलीजन की, ऐसे इस्टेब्लिशमेंट की इज्जत करने के लिए, एक जिनका इतिहास जेनोसाइडल है। जहां जहां क्रिश्चियनिटी गई, चाहे नॉर्थ अमेरिका में, ऑस्ट्रेलिया में, अफ्रीका में, जहां भी गई, वहां जेनोसाइड्स हुई हैं और फिर लोग क्रिश्चियन बने हैं। एक तो इतिहास बहुत ही भयंकर है, इस्लाम से कम नहीं है, भयंकर, और इस्लाम भी ये करता है। दूसरा उनका खुलेआम हिंदुस्तान के प्रति जो एजेंडा है वो हमें दिख रहा है, क्योंकि जहां जहां क्रिश्चियनिटी का बोलबाला बढ़ा है, क्रिश्चियन मेजॉरिटी एरिया बने हैं, वहां माओइस्ट इंसर्जेंसी, नॉर्थ ईस्ट में नागा इंसर्जेंसी, फ्लां ढिमका, जहां जहां भी है, दैट एंटायर रेड कॉरिडोर जिसकी बात होती है, जो इंसर्जेंसी का है, वो सारा क्रिश्चियनिटी लिप्त है। वो सारा क्रिश्चियनिटी नेपाल से लेकर नीचे आंध्रा केरला तक जो जाता है। तो सवाल ये है कि जो इस्टेब्लिशमेंट, ये जो ग्लोबल चर्च इस्टेब्लिशमेंट है, चाहे प्रोटेस्टेंट है चाहे कैथोलिक है, आपस में इनके जितने मर्जी मतभेद हो, एक बात स्पष्ट है, हिंदू धर्म को जलील करना है और उसको तबाह करना है, इस सिविलाइजेशन को। आप डाइजेशन की बात करते हैं, डाइजेस्ट भी करते हैं यहाँ पे आके हमें, हमारी मान्यताओं को, हमारे कल्चर्स को, परंतु दे वांट अस टू बी क्रिश्चियनाइज, फुल स्टॉप। जब ये है, मैं तो इज्जत देने को तैयार नहीं हूं ऐसे रिलीजन को, जो मुझे एक सब ह्यूमन स्पीशीज मानता है। और ये जो क्रिश्चियन थियोलॉजी के अनुसार, अगर आप क्रिश्चियन नहीं है, देन यू आर अ सब ह्यूमन स्पीशीज, you don't qualify for equality as per Christian theology also, just as Islamic theology में भी। आप काफिर हैं तो आप एक पूरे इंसान नहीं हैं, इंसानियत के कोई हक आपके, you don't deserve them। तो मैं नहीं समझ सकती कि मुझसे क्यों उम्मीद की जाए कि मैं रिस्पेक्ट करूं या उनके लिए 1 इंच की भी जगह बनाऊं। ऑलरेडी इतनी रिलीजियस डेमोग्राफी चेंज हो चुकी है, तो मुझे ये नहीं लगता कि मुझे इनके प्रति बहुत उदार होने की जरूरत है। यू मे रिस्पेक्ट, बट आई एम सॉरी, आई हैव नो रिस्पेक्ट फॉर रिलीजन्स whose stated agenda is genocide of my culture, my civilization, my people, and that's the bottom line। मैं तो इक्वल राइट्स भी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के ऐसे लोगों को ना दूं, क्योंकि हद है। हमारे मुल्क में आके आप हमें सब ह्यूमन स्पीशीज मान के कन्वर्ट करना चाहते हैं, हमें डिस्ट्रॉय करना चाहते हैं, और फिर इक्वालिटी, कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल इक्वालिटी को लेके वो तलवार हमारे गले पे चलाते हैं। We are not equal today to you, and I'm not even willing to be equal to people who want to destroy me. Gautam da, what do you have to say to that?
Namaskar. I am sympathetic to all that you and Rajiv are saying. I perfectly understand where you're coming from. I have 2 sets of comments. One is a preface and context for Christianity in India, which is that the narrative is very important. And Christianity actually, from the very outset, from the 4th century, by 350 AD, was really a political ideology. And if you read the wonderful history of Peter Brown on Christianity from the time of Constantine to the Gregory the Great, you have to admire the incredible sophistication of its mobilization, and it really was run like a business. The detail and the scholarship to demonstrate that is available, and there is a lot of it. It really was a business undertaking, and even St. Augustine was in some respects a businessman. They did not reach out to all the people as it is thought. They left out the plebeians and the slaves. That part they never challenged, because that was the source of their revenue and all the donations from the ordinary Christians and from some of the nobility, like St. Paulinus, who gave away all his fortune to the church. So it really was a business, and it's always been a political ideology. And now in India, we have this bizarre misunderstanding and keep calling it religion, which kind of gives it a kind of warm and glare. It is simply a political ideology, and of course, from the very beginning, from the 6th century for sure, from the time of the great imperial dynasties, it was an aspect of state policy. And in the modern world, that is it, the 20th century, Christianity is really an arm of US state policy. And US state policy in India is twofold. On the one hand, we talk sweetly and we sell you expensive, overpriced arms, and we sign agreements for use of Indian bases. And of course, Indian soldiers will be cannon fodder as they have been for the British Empire. But at the same time, other arms of the US system, the media, New York Times, Washington Post, will constantly harass you to keep you on the wrong foot. The other thing we should absolutely understand, in India, this only a few understood, now we have begun to forget. I'm thinking particularly about Ram Swaruchi and Sitaram Goel, that the alliance between Islam and Christianity in India goes back to the 1860s, when the British state patronized the creation of Deoband in 1866 and the Ahmadiyyas in the 1880s, because they understood very early on that these upper caste Hindus were going to be trouble because they were getting educated and they were not happy. And by the 1880s, with the Ilbert Bill, this was absolutely clear. Of course, in the early 20th century, they sponsored the Muslim League. So this is politics. And we keep talking about religion as if it's something different, something to do with our emotions and our spirit. It is politics pure and simple, and we should treat this as a political undertaking, get them to register as a political enterprise within India. Now, that's the preface, that this is all politics, ideology, and all this stuff about the almighty, really, this is just not sustainable for any reasonable person. On the question of Modiji's visit, actually, I have a more complex view. Bear in mind that the principal assault against India, there was something in the New York Times just 2-3 days ago while he was visiting, talking about the persecution of minorities. This is the weapon they're using. And Modi interacting with the Pope muddies the water for them. But this man can't be all bad. He's bowing to the Pope. He's treating him with dignity. This is Rajniti. This is not all bad. Now, it may be this will not work. And I suspect the world media will not fall for it. But this is the effort made by India, which is in a relatively weak position in the wider world. What really matters in India is what's happening on the ground. What concessions are you making? And here the picture is not good, because in some parts of the country, Indian democracy has been hijacked. Andhra Pradesh is the best example. I know Nepal very well. Nepal, 35% already Christian. This was told to me by the Prime Minister's wife. People come to your house and say, I'm not working on Sunday. And you ask, Kya hua? Say, no, I have to go to church. My relatives all telling me this. Drivers have got a cross hanging from the mirror. So this is really gathering momentum. But bear in mind something quite interesting, which actually I understand very well because I've lived away, and I think Rajiv will have no difficulty understanding this either, because Rajiv is one of the very few Indians who understand the United States. We may have all sorts of things to say about him, but Rajiv truly understands US politics and how the dynamics of the society operate. That people are not wildly enthusiastic about the church going out there and converting. This is their Achilles heel. If you explain to people that people are liberal, they're open-minded, they want diversity, so the idea that you go there and you rob people of their traditions and culture and force them into a straitjacket is not a popular thing to sell. So what the church does instead is to say persecution, church being stoned, priests being beaten up. Now, Modi's interaction is a counter to this persecution story. Now, how we abandon that persecution story and then articulate the reality of conversion and what it means for people. For example, in Nagaland, their lives and their histories have been totally disrupted. Everybody wants to be a pop singer and sit in a bar. And what happens? The Naga Christian girls are being sent to VHP-run schools so that they're secure. So there's a paradox here. So I have an open mind.
I didn't get this. Naga girls are being sent to
VHP-run schools because they're more secure. Their parents prefer that. You ask the VHP people, they prefer them to go to these Hindu schools, few of them that there are, because they feel they won't be jumping on a motorbike and running after the man. So this is this
Or
paradox.
getting into drugs.
Now, I think situation is dire. We are also afraid of taking action on the ground because I'm afraid our foreign policy wonks are all saying, don't alarm the US. China is on our border. Please do not upset. I think we should push this envelope much harder, as we did with the defense system S-400, the Russian anti-aircraft system, that we said we will buy it no matter what you do. We had also said during Manmohan's time to the United States that we will not adopt your sanctions against Iran. We will only adopt those which have been approved by the United Nations Security Council. That is what the Foreign Secretary told me. Even then, India resists, which is one reason why they regard us as very unreliable people. They want somebody much more pliable than Modi. However, we should push the envelope much harder on the issue of conversion on the ground. This is where I am not sure what is going on, because I get too many reports saying that the process of conversion is at pace in Andhra, Tamil Nadu, and I don't know where we will end up.
Even Punjab. Even Punjab.
And of course, Punjab,
Haryana.
10% already in Punjab.
Delhi, Haryana, Punjab, the entire belt. The only belt that is safe is Kashmir, because they dare not mess around where Muslims dominate.
Yeah,
Rajiv, I want to share with you.
So I want to add a perspective to the direction of what Gautam said. United States is a very complex country, like India is, with many moving parts, and it's not all everybody's like this or like that. It's very complex. So a person like Biden, you have to understand, he's a Catholic. Biden is a Catholic. Now, his relationship with the church is complex because he's taken stands, whether it's on abortion and certain issues like that, domestic kind of stands, where the Christians are very upset at him. Some of them have even said that he should be kicked out and not allowed in the church and all that. But he's a very devout Catholic himself. So, he has to give them some consolation. He has to give them a consolation prize and giving them some India. Okay, I'll support you for in India to help you with your human rights campaign against India and all that. We'll do it in a way that is sort of leftist, but it'll actually help the church. We will say that all this persecution of Christians and all that should stop. And basically, the fight against so-called Christian persecution, it really is a front for saying open up the doors for evangelism. Because when you stop evangelism, when you put laws against evangelism, then the charge is that you're persecuting. Okay, it's a very weird kind of a thing. So the victimhood, that you're not allowing me to evangelize and convert people, so I'm the victim, and you're not letting me save all these poor people who are the Hindus are abusing, their Dalits and whatever, and so I want to save them, and you're not allowing me to save them from this horrible faith that you have. So this kind of a narrative has become very strong and very global, worldwide. In fact, it's going to get worse. In 2022, you will see this kind of narrative against India is going to get very bad. So the liberal, the extreme left wing of the Democratic Party are more into aggressively attacking India on grounds of woke, critical race theory, and human rights and all that. And the church, of course, likes all that because it dismantles the fabric of India, the Hindu fabric, and opens the gates for more Christian conversion more easily. So where the government policy is like, okay, for domestic purposes, we need to create our own vote bank in Congress and get support from all these different people. So putting pressure on India is not a bad thing. It doesn't cost anything to the US to say, okay, to the church, that we're getting you this, we're supporting with you on this, but we'll do it in a discreet way because they're also an ally. We need them and Quad and all that business. As far as India is concerned, India is unable to stand up tough to the US on certain matters because India is so scared of China that it feels, and Russia is no longer the all-weather ally it used to be because they've tilted on China's side very clearly. They've pivoted that way. Now it's like because China has got a huge amount of military and a lot of technology and a lot of money and Pakistan on their side, and they're coming to eat us up. And all the attempts to have a friendly settlement with them have failed. So now we're going to stand and be tough on China. And for that, we need United States. So US knows that while it needs India, but India needs America for survival of its sovereignty. It's a far bigger dependency that India has on the United States. So that being the case, US feels it can get certain things from India. And this business of putting some pressure that, okay, go make your peace with the Pope, go there, bow to him and invite him and make it. And, so I feel that, it's not like Modi's fault for anything personal. These are problems that have been caused for a very long time. All these problems have caused for a very long time. So now Modi has very limited choices. What does he do? He needs United States, and United States says this is the price you got to pay. So that the noose is tightening on India's options. Whether it is Modi or whether it is somebody else, these problems are real. The problem is real that India does not have a whole lot of clout internationally in dealing with China, other than getting US and Israel, and maybe India should get Japan, because Japan's a more reliable, very highly technological country to get in as a defense partner of some kind. Russia is no longer available. So, when India is thinking of its own security, you have to understand with sympathy that, giving in on some kind of missionary thing and all is doesn't look like a very bad deal. That's the backstory that I want us to also be aware of.
Rajiv, I understand that, and I'm glad you're taking a very nuanced position as opposed to my very angst filled position. But let me tell you, as Gujarat Chief Minister, Modi did act out that balance. Okay. For example, he made sure that all the pending demands of Christian missionaries, I've discussed this in 2-3 chapters of my book on Modi, Muslims and Media, but there are chapters on how he handled the Christian community. He made sure that whatever legitimate demands they had, and little beyond that, he immediately redressed, including somewhere they wanted a graveyard, which they were agitating for during Congress regime for a long time, and it wasn't. And he gave them that, conceded to that demand almost instantly. I've described those incidents in detail on the basis of ground report. And for example, Christian schools wanted from him free books that the Gujarat government, and free uniforms and all the rest of the things that Gujarat government was giving to school children. And they said, why not to our school? Said, sure enough. And all those benefits were extended to them. However, when it came to conversions, he did tighten the noose, especially in the Dang area. And in the Dang area, let me tell you that story because it's very instructive. Much before Modi, there was this Shabri Dham being planned and constructed in the Dang area, which is mainly tribal. And tribal is actually a very stupid term, Bhil area. तो वहां पे शबरी धाम को बहुत ग्रैंड मेमोरियल बनाया गया मंदिर के रूप में. तो क्रिश्चियन मिशनरीज ने नाक में दम कर दिया सरकार का. और इतने आप देखिए इकोनॉमिक एंड पॉलिटिकल वीकली में अब आर्टिकल पढ़िए, हर इनके प्लेटफॉर्म पे आर्टिकल पढ़िए, तो ऐसा लग रहा था ये हिंदुआइजेशन ऑफ आदिवासी एरिया, ये जैसे कोई बहुत ही जहरीली आइडियोलॉजी यहाँ लाई जा रही है और शबरी को राम से कनेक्ट किया जा रहा है. भाई थी शबरी और राम का रिश्ता हजारों साल पुराना है. इससे बड़े अपसेट हो गए और बड़ी कोशिश की ग्लोबली इन्होंने कैंपेन चला के उसको बंद करवाने की. और अपने एंड दीज आर थिंग्स दैट प्रधानमंत्री तब चीफ मिनिस्टर थे, ही टोल्ड मी हिमसेल्फ कि अपने आप ही कोई ना कोई इंजीनियर कर लेते थे, थोड़ा सा कंकर पत्थर करके, nobody would be injured, but there would be big reports globally that हिंदुओं ने अटैक किया चर्च को. He says कहीं कोई खरोच भी नहीं लगती थी, but they would spread this. And of course, there were the Tista Setalwards and the Medha Patkars who were helping these missionaries. But you see, what he did there was this: he made sure that the administration, he said so in so many words, मुझे पता था कि एक कंकर भी चलेगा तो एक ग्लोबल इशू बना देंगे, तो मेरे डिस्ट्रिक्ट ऑफिसर्स को बहुत स्ट्रिक्ट इंस्ट्रक्शंस थी कि किसी भी हालत में जरा भी दंगे का माहौल बनने नहीं देना है, इनको कोई शिकायत का मौका देना ही नहीं है। पर शबरी धाम को हम नहीं रोकेंगे, शबरी मेला को हम नहीं रोकेंगे, क्योंकि लाखों आदिवासी उससे जुड़ गए थे बड़े प्यार से। तो वो एक बैलेंसिंग एक्ट था और कन्वर्जन्स पे थोड़ी नजर रखना शुरू किया। अभी क्योंकि हमें मालूम है कि सिर्फ धर्म नहीं बदला जाता, देश के प्रति विमुखता और देश को जो बांटने तोड़ने की राजनीति है, जो ब्रेकअप इंडिया फोर्सेस की आपकी किताब में बात है, सारे अब तो देश में ये फ्रेज इस्तेमाल होने लगी है, ब्रेकअप इंडिया फोर्सेस, माफिया, ये उसके हिस्से बन जाते हैं। सवाल उसका है। गोवा इंक्विजिशन पे अगर मोदी जी कहते, पोप साहब आप जरा अपोलोजाइज कर दीजिए, हमारे ह्यूमन राइट्स की बात पे कितना अन्याय हुआ, कुछ जगह तो पोप ने किया, माफी मांगी है, तो वो नहीं करते हम, हमारी कोई डिमांड ही नहीं है। इसका मतलब हम अपने ऊपर सारी तोहमत लेते हैं और झूठी तोहमत लेते हैं। We could be issuing a white paper, the government of India could be issuing a white paper to show the speed with which churches have expanded. The number of churches today, अब दिल्ली में मेरे बचपन में केवल 4 चर्च होती थी, आज 4000 से ज्यादा होंगी। और अगर यही फिगर दुनिया में बताया जाए तो कैसे कोई कह सकता है कि अटैक हो रहे। A white paper should have been issued on the fake charges of attacks against Christians. As we know, जब वो था क्रिकेट का बॉल लगा तो चर्च अटैक हो गया, उनका कैशियर पैसा चुरा के ले गया कैश से तो चर्च अटैक हो गया। झूठे कितने फेक नैरेटिव्स चलाते हैं, they're माहिर in it. The point is we don't present our case properly, and this has been your complaint for a long time. We don't present the case that today we, the Hindus, are the endangered species because our population is shrinking, others are expanding. Now, where does it happen that you can blame a majority which is shrinking, which is on the defensive, whose constitutional rights are not at par with that of Hindus, with that of Christians and Muslims? कैसे केस बना सकते हैं, कैसे केस बना सकते हैं? क्यों नहीं ये एडवोकेसी चलती, क्यों नहीं ये बातें ग्लोबल कम्युनिटी तक पहुंचती, क्यों नहीं हमारे एकेडमिक्स को इन इश्यूज पे काम करने के लिए सपोर्ट किया जाता? नहीं करते ना, तो
बेसिकली
देखते हैं।
So basically, I agree. Madhu, recently people will remember there was this dismantling Hindutva conference, which was actually dismantling Hinduism conference, because when you listen to what the speaker said, they said that the nightmare of human rights violations is all because of Hinduism. It is an incurable disease. It's a terminal cancer. You cannot cure it. Don't think that you can reform Hinduism. You have to dismantle it. This is the message that came out loud and clear. And after that, they put out many more of these manuals, toolkits and all further new ones to achieve this goal. Now, during this crisis or during this conference, when it was, mobilizing, I contacted Vinay Sahasrabuddhe, who's the head of the ICCR. All these international culture reports to them under Ministry of External Affairs, and he's also a minister and a Rajya Sabha member. And I told him that Rutgers University, which was one of the centers from where this whole global Hindu dismantling conference was going on, the Rutgers University may, I don't know if you people know this, but Rutgers University may ICCR sponsored and funded an India Studies chair. Rutgers University. So I said, is this true? Because I had a picture of an MOU being signed by the Indian Consul General and the Vice President of Rutgers signing a MOU to create this chair. So मैंने वो फोटो लेकर tweet किया, and I sent a copy to Sahasrabuddhe ji, and I said, is this true? And he said, yeah, this is very good for our scholars. ये वो plana. He justified it. So I said, why don't you call the chair whoever it is, and call your colleagues and your partner in Rutgers University senior management and tell them not to, why is this conference going on? एक तरफ से तो हम आपको funding दे रहे हैं chair के लिए, और दूसरी तरफ से आप लोग ये हमारे ऊपर कर रहे हो. This doesn't make any sense. And he did not want to get involved. They don't. The Indian embassy didn't want to get involved. Ministry of External Affairs didn't want to get involved. So उसका नतीजा ये है कि we are considered a soft target. Activists like you, me, Gautam, we are individual people. We got no authority. We have no adhikar. We don't represent any official thing. And अपनी तरफ से हम जितना भी बोलेंगे, the opposing side says इनको बोलने दो, इनकी कोई authority तो है नहीं. The ministry is compromised. ICCR will not say anything. किसी ICCR official ने कुछ भी नहीं बोला. Ministry of External Affairs वालों ने कुछ नहीं बोला. This is kind of a disgrace.
But Rajiv, if I may add, I agree with you. Just a general point. Our foreign ministry is what I call uber secular. So its sympathies are not always with the kind of narrative that we would wish. The ICCR is to fund the most anti-Indian department in London University, which was very, very hostile to India, very pro-Pakistan. It was to fund that. And I spoke to the JNU professor who had come here to review, and I said, this is the work they do. The money was renewed. Vajpayee's government, against my bitter opposition, funded a chair in Oxford, which has ever since then been occupied by critics of India. So, there is a problem on our side. I would say one of the biggest failures is not to counter these people. We know the nature of the beast is the freeing of Indian temples so that our dharma flourishes on a scale and is a magnet for all those people who may have doubts. There is no other way. Church planting is intended to achieve that it attracts. And we have not allowed this. It is the Indian state which, more than before independence, has constrained Hinduism, and we must let it flourish in order to take this on. I don't think there's a great deal of time left. Now, we are dependent on the United States. I have no doubt about that. As somebody who taught international relations, I'm aware of all the constraints, but I still think we exaggerate. The US also needs India for many, many reasons, and we have some room for maneuver which we do not resort to. We can resist to a greater degree, as I illustrated we did with the S-400 anti-missile system and the Iraq action, but we don't do this. And the ICCR is bizarre. I had proposed the names of Conrad and one other from London, a very distinguished full professor. No go. They did not. They fund so many chairs around the world, but this did not happen. So we have a problem on our side.
Of course, we have a problem. That's why we are discussing it. See, that Pope has his agenda. We all know, and we can deal with that. The point that I'm trying to make, Rajiv, you said we need America. We need so-and-so. We need, of course, the world needs us and we need them, etc., etc. But if that tiny Israel can carve out an agenda for itself on its own terms, I don't see why this giant India can't do it. And they are, mind you, surrounded by a sea of hostility and enemies who, like with Hindus, are determined to make them vanish from the surface of this earth. But they make sure that they can't get away with that agenda. Whereas we seem to be inviting more and more violence, more and more genocides, and appear to be grateful, as though Modi ji का जो पोप से मिलना है वो तो लगता है is grateful कि ये सब हो रहा है हिंदुओं के साथ. कभी-कभी लगता है ये खुद भी.
Can we say something hopeful about the G20? Something actually hopeful?
Yes, we are going to come that. This is my.
Before we lose the subject of, so I want to tell you, Madhu, along the lines of what you said today at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. My colleague Vijaya Vishwanathan and I are going to be on a panel with two Jews, to talk about campus violence, campus hatred and violence against Hindus and all that. Imagine they've come to help us out, bring our case forward because they have a lot of clout, they have a lot of connections, they have a lot of Jewish lawyers, and they can help us in the United States. They've come to help us out when the government and the ministry and the embassies and the consulates are totally useless in terms of helping us out. I do want to make that point, that it's individual people in their own personal capacity sticking their neck out, taking the risk, using their resources to fight these battles, which are actually, we are doing the job of the government, and the Sarkari people, whether they're babus or they're ministers, are not doing their job. And this is, I think this is not just a matter of policy. I think that they're actually ignorant. What Gautam said, that they appoint the wrong people, so often they are giving awards to the wrong people, they're appointing the wrong people, they're praising the wrong things. And I see this among the ministry people. The Indian Foreign Service people are not well educated. The Indian politicians are not well educated. I don't think the Sangh people, they're very good human beings. I like them as individual friends. But in terms of the rank and file, I don't think they're well educated. So I think there's an intellectual deficiency on the Indian side in dealing with international relations when it comes to culture and faith, religion, and those kind of matters.
No doubt about it. उससे भी ज्यादा राजीव, इंटेलेक्चुअल डिफिशिएंसी तो भरी जा सकती है, आत्मसम्मान की कमी वो कहाँ से खरीद के लाएंगे? इंटेलेक्चुअल्स तो आप हायर कर सकते हैं. You can today, government of India can hire the best intellectual brains across the globe. जैसे करते हैं कई देश, चाइना भी करता है. It has on its payroll the best brains of America and Europe. वो आ सकता है, पर आत्मसम्मान के लिए कौन सा बाजार, कौन सी मॉल है जहां से वो लेके आएंगे? जिस दिन वो आत्मसम्मान आ गया तो इस तरह झुक के साष्टांग नहीं होगा किसी पोप के लिए जिसका खुला एजेंडा है भारत को क्रिश्चियनाइज करना, हमारे मंदिरों को लिप्त करना, हमारी पूरी सभ्यता और संस्कृति को जलील करके वाइप आउट करना, जलील करके. ये केवल बाहुबल के जोर पे नहीं. It's not just the power of the sword, but the power of defamation, which you have so well documented. I don't need to tell you, but I'm saying this, sharing my angst with viewers. So ये बातें मुझे लगता है कि अगर जैसे हिंदुइज्म क्या डिसमेंटलिंग हिंदुइज्म वाली जो कॉन्फ्रेंस थी, इतनी जहरीली बातें कही गई उस कॉन्फ्रेंस में जिसका असल में कोई लेना देना नहीं है वास्तविकता से, ग्राउंड रियलिटी से. झूठ है, झूठ के आधार पे डेफमेशन हो रही है. तो कम से कम क्रिमिनल डेफमेशन सूट्स तो फाइल हो सकते थे यूएस में. भारत सरकार कर सकती थी, हमारी एचआरडी मिनिस्ट्री कर सकती थी, आईसीएसएसआर कर सकती थी, पर इनका खून ही नहीं खोलता. सारे देश में लोगों का खून खोला. यू कुड सी ऑन सोशल मीडिया how there was so much aggravation and anger among people, and some NRI groups got together and started countering it. But इनका खून नहीं खोला, एक मुंह से जबान से शब्द नहीं निकला. और देखिए, हम खुद की इज्जत नहीं करेंगे अपने सभ्यता की. Let's forget it that we can rise tall in the Committee of Nations. I don't think so. Now, before we proceed any further, my colleague is reminding me, please like, subscribe and share. मुझे हमेशा भूल जाता है, हमारा बेल आइकॉन भी नहीं अभी लगा. आशीष कल लगा देना प्लीज. और जो देख रहे हैं, मुझे सब कहते हैं आप बोलती ही नहीं हैं. Like, subscribe and share, please do. And now to G20 commitments. I'm sure both of you have a lot more to say on that. Rajiv, the question I want to ask both of you is, बहुत एक प्रोपेगेंडा है कि हिंदुस्तान का ग्लोबल क्लाउड बहुत बढ़ गया है मोदी जी के आने से, उनकी हगिंग डिप्लोमेसी से, उनके पर्सनल इक्वेशन से, उनके प्रोएक्टिव रवैये से. और इसकी वजह से दुनिया आज हमें बहुत इज्जत से देखने लगी. हमारा पॉलिटिकल क्लाउड, इकोनॉमिक क्लाउड बहुत बड़ा है. What do you say to that, both of you? One after the other.
Shall I make a start?
Yes,
Yes.
please go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes.
There is a hopeful sign which is going completely unnoticed. If you look back at some of the most important conferences in the past 100 years, which created the new architecture of the world order, going back to Versailles, the League of Nations, and even the UN, these were deeply imbued and informed by Christian values, very, very clearly articulated a Christian world. Since that time, and particularly now with this conference, wordlessly, we now have a presentation which is a Dharmic cosmology. If you think about the two critical facets of the way this G20 conference has been proceeding, the first is this ontology, which is a Dharmic ontology of oneness. We are one with nature. We should be very proud. This is the underlying theme that we as a people around the globe are all in it together. This idea of unity is a very Hindu Dharmic idea. And also that we are connected to the inanimate world. This is very Hindu indeed. And the other part, which the Adi Shankaracharya would have been very satisfied to find, that we are privileging not faith, we are privileging knowledge and the exchange of ideas to deal with the problems. So these two things, the ontology of oneness and the use of knowledge through cooperation to advance the future of the world in conjunction with nature, these are truly dharmic. The religiosity of earlier assumptions has been quietly put aside. So this, in a way, is hopeful. It reminds me very much of Lisa Miller's article 12 years ago, in 2009, in Newsweek, in which she said that Americans have unknowingly adopted many Hindu ideas and practices like reincarnation, yoga, and a liberal view that all other ways of life should be allowed, which is the weak Achilles heel of Christian evangelists. Because the ordinary person, if it is explained to them, will not want this. They will think there is something wrong, that you are no longer allowed by law in the UK to try and change a gay person with medical technology. So there is an atmosphere. It is, as you said, Madhu, we are not presenting our case very well. And for this, solitary individuals like Rajiv, who has done a great deal, and others are simply not adequate. There needs to be official sponsorship, maybe at arm's length. This has never happened, and it is not happening now. Now, I am not going to point a finger at this government, which is my government. This is a government that I support, and for which I will make any sacrifice, because a साढ़े 7 साल एक देश का इतिहास में is a palak. It's just a flash of the eye. 7.5 years, lot of achievements. I would wish for more. And the most important thing, जे मैं विनती किया, चिट्ठी लिखा, भीख मांगा, हमारे मंदिर को छोड़ दीजिए. यही हमारे शुरुआत. For our हमारे मंदिर को छोड़ दीजिए. We will make many mistakes when that happens. We will mess up, but at least we have to start. And I have confidence that we can do it. And this conference, in a way, articulates the way that the global sentiment is moving away from faith to ways of thinking with which we can easily identify. Rajiv.
So here I disagree. I think all the facts that my friend Gautam presented are valid, true. But there is a phenomenon called digestion.
Yes.
Where Hindu ideas are being Christianized and taken over as Christian and sold back. There is a whole movement called Christian yoga. There's a whole, the thing is this, that just because originally these things came from India, even those who acknowledge that they came from India have said, okay, fine, theek hai, ho gaya, aapko maan diya. But now, like the Renaissance happened because ancient Greek ideas were brought into West. Okay. And Christianity reinvented itself. I will say one thing. One of the things that China is very good at and the West is very good at is taking other people's ideas, owning the ones that fit them, and calling it their own, rewriting history and moving it forward, developing these ideas further. Guess where is the cutting edge research being done in Ayurveda? It is not being done in the S. Vyasa in India. It is being done in places like Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard. Guess where? So if you look at a lot of Indian ideas that we are very proud. So as a chauvinist, as a person, very emotional, and for the history books, all that is correct. But as a matter of who is getting the power out of it, who is getting the economic value out of it. I'm writing so much on this digestion thing. The world's largest promoter of plant-based cosmetics, is a company called Aveda, which is owned by Estee Lauder, which was sold by a couple who learned this idea from India. They had a guru. In fact, before this gentleman died, who became worth hundreds of millions of dollars, created this company. I interviewed 25 years ago. Bob Thurman introduced me to this guy. And he was very proud that they went to India. They learned about Ayurveda because they fell ill and it helped treat them. Then they started bringing little cuttings to USA. Then they started planting these things to USA. Then they started bringing farmers. So, and the story is that they end up building a very big empire of Ayurvedic stuff in their own name. And they called it Aveda, which stands for Ayurveda. The word Aveda, if you look, it's the biggest brand in the world for women. If you women cosmetics and all that all over the place. Aveda, okay, and so they created this, and he was very proud, saying, "We are championing Indian stuff. Why are you complaining?" I said, "But did you give even 1 rupee of royalty back?" He said, "No." Did you ever acknowledge that this is Indian Ayurveda? You're calling it your own, and so that is called digestion. Okay, so whether it is, you can look at one discipline after another. And you will find that the digestion of Indian civilization and reformulating it into the Western civilization and rewriting its history and saying this came from Plato and this came from Jesus Christ, yoga started with Jesus Christ, all that kind of nonsense. This is called digestion. And they digested the Greek heritage. So the Greek heritage, why is Greece so weak? Greek country people should be standing up and saying, we are doing so well because look at all the Western thought, which is actually Greek origin. Okay, it's Greek origin, but who cares? Greece is a poor country. It's one of the lowest in terms of power within Europe. But all its heritage, all its knowledge, all its wisdom has been digested, taken over, and so on. So now, just like the Greek digestion happened, which led to the Renaissance of Europe some hundreds of years ago, now the Renaissance of America is happening with the digestion of Vedic thought and Indian thought, but not being acknowledged as such. So why is it that the roots from which you are taking the knowledge, the roots from which you are harvesting the fruits are coming out of these roots of India. The Vedic roots are producing all these fruits that you are harvesting, that you name. Why is it that you want to destroy those roots? Why is it that you want to go destroy the roots from which you are getting all the fruits? This is the real discussion that I have been having. Our people need to understand. Stop praising that they are taking our yoga, or they're taking this and that out of. They took mathematics, but who that cares? Who else acknowledges that it's out of India? Okay. So the point. It is not, and it's not just a matter of proper authentication and acknowledgement in history books. That's step number one. More important is you take the foundations of knowledge out of somewhere, and then you add value and develop it further. So that development of Ayurveda into the future, who's doing it? We are not doing it that much. So I would say that the fate of Indian civilization in the world is that we are freely donating, giving all this stuff to everybody, whoever wants it. And these people are not necessarily grateful for it. India does not have soft power because of yoga and Ayurveda, because the definition of soft power is you would have people in the US Congress and in the British Parliament and in European Parliament and United Nations saying, we don't want to criticize India because after all, this is our mother. This is the mother from which we got all. How can we criticize Hinduism? How can we talk about dismantling Hinduism when we are getting so much of our futuristic ideas from there? The point is there's a disconnect. They take the ideas but deny it, they disconnect it, they reconceptualize it, digest it as their own, and then they go and attack the source. So, this is called academic arson. An arsonist is a person who goes to a bank, robs the bank, and burns it down. He burns down the place from where he got his money. So, first of all, he's stealing the money. He wants to burn it down so there's no evidence left. So, this business of condemning, wiping out Hinduism, dismantling it, while taking all its goodies, all the treasures, taking it and calling it your own. This is what the world dynamics today. It is not just we are civilizing the world, but we are being destroyed by the same people who are consuming this knowledge. So I want you to complete the picture.
I am very much in favor of what Rajiv has said. I agree with him. I will just add that soft power is now something a lot of people talk about in India quite ignorantly. Soft power is usually an accessory of hard power.
Right.
That is where we do not have it. So this is something which many people, even in the Sangh Parivar, talk about, but this is laughable. There is no such thing as soft power as a standalone element. The other thing, to mention Ayurveda, which Rajiv, I know you've been working, I am vaguely associated with a very influential group in India, very capable people, including a professor from Cambridge University, UK, working on Ayurveda and trying to sell a model to the government. And it's an uphill struggle, a model which will ensure that Ayurveda is not being usurped. But the government has its own model. That model is invite multinational companies to come and work in India.
There
This
you are.
Ayurveda market is worth $3 to $4 trillion. Ayurveda is fabulous for chronic and lifestyle illnesses. It may not be so good for intervention and surgery, but for some of these things, Ayurveda is very good. And this is going to be a huge market. And as he has just pointed out, foreign companies are taking over. But I'm afraid the government has not been sympathetic. We have even sent our people to ministers. Nothing.
You are talking about not being sympathetic. Let me bring in what's happening to Ayurveda. Apart from the fact that less than 2% of health budget goes towards Ayurveda. Less than 2%. Even this is overstated. Secondly, and which is more important, the kind of persecution that Vaidyas are facing, notably starting with Patanjali. Now, you may disagree with Baba Ramdev on 100 matters, but nobody can deny that the manner in which he revived Ayurveda and made it a household knowledge. And he's not just selling drugs. The reason I respect Baba Ramdev, no matter what his other flaws may or may not be, is that he doesn't insist that you buy his medicines like Dabur will say or Himalaya will say. They'll just give you the bottle thing. He tells you, घर में ये उगा लो, you can grow this. अब जैसे गिलोय का इस्तेमाल to deal with viral fevers, with viruses, या पपीते के पत्ते, millions of people, including me, have benefited by using that and not going for any allopathic medicine. बाबा रामदेव पे हजारों कोर्ट केस हैं और वो भी allopathic माफिया ने की हैं. Or Indian Medical Association is actually president of the current Indian Medical Association is a Christian who actually uses his position openly, brazenly to proselytize. ये खुलेआम हो रहा है, उसके ऊपर चार्ज आए, कोई सरकार ने उसके ऊपर एक्शन नहीं लिया, पर उसने इतने केसेस 1100-1500 केसेस फाइल किए हुए in all courts of India against Ramdev for claiming that allopathy actually doesn't have a cure, no proven cure, and that you're more likely to protect yourself from COVID and any other viruses if you strengthen your immune system through the range of herbs that even Ayush Ministry has endorsed. Imagine the kind of money he's spending, the time, harassment, humiliation, criminal cases against him in so many courts. And our courts accept it. Ayush Ministry doesn't defend. Modi ji forced Harshvardhan to make Baba Ramdev apologize in a press conference कि नहीं मेरे पास कोई क्योर नहीं है. इतना humiliation, persecution, और साउथ में कितने आयुर्वेदिक clinics बंद हो गए because they were treating COVID patients. Now you tell me, you're talking of research, you're talking of creating what Rajiv was talking about. There's active persecution even today.
So actually, I will say that India missed a golden opportunity during COVID by not promoting Ayurveda-based treatments as a complement to vaccination. I'm not against vaccination, but I'm saying preventive treatments and this whole immune system business. India missed a huge opportunity because there was, of course, all this ideological clash between this camp and that camp and what should be done about COVID and all that. And India did not do a whole lot which it could have to champion. I will also tell you this. My friend, classmate Michael Menezes, who just passed away, unfortunately, about a year within the last year, he and I initiated about three years ago something with Niti Aayog at the highest level to bring in yoga, meditation, Ayurveda type of traditional treatments into the medical system. And he set up a foundation, my friend, to do this and bring private money and help out and all. And with all the lip service, I was asked to chair roundtables. and they had all the who's who of Indian medical establishment, the head of AIMS, the head of Ayush, all the ministry people, because Niti Aayog could summon them and they would all come. And we have the videos, recording of all the proceedings of this. Michael and I championed this. At the end of it, nothing happened. And you could tell the kind of lip service they would do for Ayurveda, and everybody trying to tell how great they are, but nobody taking action. The government didn't push through. What we wanted would be that they should push through an agenda that would bring top research into India. And some laws have to be changed. You see, the Indian sharing of databases, biological databases with Britain and US and Swiss companies and all of that should stop. And there's a large amount of intellectual property theft, in a sense. Maybe the word theft is strong, but I use it. There is a lot of intellectual property theft going on right under the eyes of the government, and nothing is being done to stop it. So the Ayurveda knowledge systems are being sucked out by other people from various parts of the world, and they're turning it into treatment plans. The whole field called functional medicine, very fancy term, but a large part of it is plant-based, large part of it is, holistic treatment. So these kind of ideas that Gautam rightly said are Indian, we should be very proud, this unity, this oneness. The point is, that is no longer just ours. It's all been taken, dismantled, digested into Christianity, into Western science, into all kind of things. So when people are winning with oneness, it is not nobody out of the G20 saying that this is the victory of Dharma. Not a single person. When they are saying climate change has won, only some chauvinists sitting in somewhere are going to say, "Ha, bhi hum jeet gaye because climate ye to hamari devi hai. This is a Mother Earth, uski jeet ho rahi hai." Nobody is saying कि thank you India, आपने climate change कर दिया है. In fact, they are saying India is one of the worst perpetrators of abusing the climate. No, not a single person saying कि सारी climate idea, eco-feminism idea ये भारत की है. So idea.
That is why I use the term wordlessly. Can I quickly address some of the specifics of the G20, which may be of interest to the audience, some of the individual issues very quickly, where there has been an Indian input. For the first time, they have addressed the question of excess luxurious consumption, which was a perspective not by India alone, but India was a leader in this. That has now been put into the actual minutes of the G20. The other thing very important for India was the idea that small farmers cannot survive in the marketplace, because in the end, small farmers have to be absorbed into the wider economy. But this is a complex and long process. So in the interim, they have to be protected. And that has now been accepted, because small farmers cannot compete with the mechanized farms of the United States. But in any case, those farms are also heavily subsidized. So this small farmer interest is very important for India. That has now been recognized. The third thing India has promoted with other developing countries is debt forgiveness for the poorest countries after COVID. India has failed to push for full membership of the NSG because the waiver India received in 2008 was effectively nullified by new protocols in 2011 of the NSG. But China and a number of countries have successfully opposed Indian entry as a full member of the NSG. This is a problem for India, because if India wants to go nuclear in terms of nuclear power plants, which is where they will have to go, it is much more problematic. India did not, as far as I'm aware, was able to get terrorism onto the agenda with a firm commitment. And the vaccine recognition by WHO has not also occurred, though I heard just today Australia has recognized Covaxin.
Yes.
And I'm afraid the politics of all of this entire G20 should not be underestimated. It is not all Dharmic cooperation and brotherhood. There is a lot of politics, cold calculation, and mistrust. But if we are to get anywhere, this is the way to go. There will have to be international cooperation on climate change. And Modi Sarkar and India has done a lot in terms of trying to move away. And the developed countries really haven't advanced a hand of friendship to the poorer countries with technology and the ability to reach levels of development which are absolutely unavoidable for these poorer countries. So, on the whole, I do agree with Rajiv that we are being inculturated, we are being digested, but our ideas are out there somewhere. And that perhaps is a small consolation, though that I agree is not the whole picture.
So there is a,
Gautam da,
there is a, there
I
is a,
would like to respond, Rajiv, for a
yeah,
minute.
yeah, go ahead,
Two
go ahead.
points regarding G20. Gautam da, you said big achievements, small farmers can't survive in marketplace. I'm saying this in itself is our own failure in addressing the problems. They can't help us. Small farmers can very easily survive if you move our agriculture from grain growing dependence, which is artificially created because of this whole system of PDS and government buying grains. Small farmers can certainly be competitive if they switch to high value, low volume crops like medicinal herbs. India is the most suitable place. Baba Ramdev has helped farmers do that. The government of India has done zilch to move farming in India in that direction. Our farmers are, for example, in Punjab and Haryana and everywhere else. Why do they depend on wheat and rice? These, as I said, low value, high volume crops, which
Madhu, this
depend
has just
on
been
government
blocked by the farmers'
procurement.
dispute. The first uncertain tentative steps in that direction have been blocked by a coalition of Khalistanis, Pakistanis, and China. This was the
That has
first
nothing to
essential
do
step.
with that has nothing to do with firstly, you did a bad job. Just as you do a bad job of communicating yourself to the world, you don't present yourself as a victim of terrorism, you don't present yourself a victim of defamation, but you're forever apologizing to them. Similarly, the best thing Modi government did was these farm laws. Farmers' organizations were asking for it for 50 years. But did the government present it like that? They could easily have done proper homework, gotten these farm laws announced through the mouths of farm leaders and saying, well, these are your demands. Tell us what more you want to add. There's a way of going about it. They did a bad job of announcing what are historic reforms. Secondly, you say terrorism. India did not succeed in
Yes,
getting
no, they did
terrorism
not.
on the agenda
No, they
of
didn't.
G20. How
No.
can we, when we don't have the guts to declare Pakistan a terrorist state, when we organize cricket matches with them, when we organize music festivals and all kinds of cultural exchanges and biryani festivals and, all that hugging diplomacy, even with them? People are saying now, when is after the Pope, the next hug will be Hafiz Saeed or the Taliban head of Afghanistan, because it's gotten bizarre. You tell me, after the match with Pakistan, I mean, even before the match was organized, there was widespread protest, at least on social media. Please don't do it. Please don't do it. We ought not to be dealing with this terrorist state. We need to be every day they are killing our people, not only our soldiers, but also killing just innocent civilians in Kashmir and elsewhere. What do we do? Why cricket match? Why have we not declared Pakistan a terrorist state and broken off all ties, send their diplomats packing home, withdraw our own embassy from there? If we can't do that, what about the water? Modi ji had threatened, Jhelum water हम नहीं देंगे, खून बहना और पानी बहना इकट्ठे नहीं हो सकता, पर हो रहा है. So if you don't take the right steps, which country in the world will take you seriously? I don't understand. So if we fail, it's because we don't actually act on those things, just as we don't act on what small farmers need. We don't act on terrorism in the way we need to. So I don't know what kind of success can we get there. So G20 में जो असली एजेंडा होना चाहिए था, terrorism should have been top of the list, but only if we take strong steps. If in Kashmir you are romancing the same separatists, same pro-Pakistani parties who have
I can't
fans.
hear. So am I still there?
Yes, now you came back. Like me, you also vanished for a while. So Rajiv, मैं कह रही थी कि टेररिज्म कैसे एजेंडा? हाँ, फिर राजीव कहाँ चले गए? आशीष जरा देखो क्या हो रहा है. दिस हैपन टू मी.
मैम
हाँ,
मैम वो स्ट्रीम से बाहर चले गए.
आएंगे ना वापस, बिकॉज 9 बजे तक हैं, 15 मिनट हमारे पास हैं. तो
Okay,
चलो
ma'am.
इसी के साथ साथ इन द मीन टाइम प्लीज कमेंट्स और क्वेश्चंस कोई हैं तो डालिए. लेट्स सी
Okay, ma'am.
what people have to say. भेजिए. We'll wait for Rajiv. In the meantime, let's look at.
I'm back. I think I'm back.
You're back now.
Okay, thank
So
you. Sorry
since
about that.
you only have 15 minutes, I just want you to respond to if there are any questions. But my thing
So I
on
think
terrorism.
before
Yeah.
one thing I want to agree with you. We failed to bring Afghanistan on the agenda because now what has happened is US and the others have walked away from Afghanistan after creating a big mess, and it is left to the neighborhood, our neighborhood, to sort out a big mess. So the people who are going to sort it out are China, Pakistan, Russia, Iran, and India. These are the people who are going to sort it out. And so India has not got the clout, at a seat at the table in terms of the future of Afghanistan. That's a very serious matter. It's happened very suddenly, and India is not prepared for it. And this is a G20 issue. It is a United Nations issue, and India has not been able to get the world attention for that.
So on a scale of 10, if I were to ask you, Rajiv, is our rating, global rating and political clout higher than it used to be pre-Modi era? What would you say? Is it upper?
I think Modi has helped improve our clout. But I think that it's like saying we used to go at 20 miles and we are now going at 40 miles. We're doing well. But the point is our competition is going at 80 miles. And we have to look at that. So the real benchmark should be our clout versus China. 20 years ago, it was not that different. 40 years ago, we were probably ahead of them in terms of international clout. So they've been catching up. Now they are miles ahead of us. That is what we should worry about rather than whether we are better than before. Because who cares? The competition is today. We are not competing with our past. We are competing with China today, and we're losing.
I agree with Rajiv on this, except to say that Modi Sarkar hasn't had enough time to reverse this. But steps are being taken. Small thing which will indicate the fact that our balance of payments reserves are over $650 billion. Small thing. In 1991, we were in desperate trouble, virtually begging. That's in the past. Our economy is growing at a pretty healthy pace. We need another 15, 20 years of peace to have a real footprint. As Rajiv says, yes, we're doing better, but we have to always compare ourselves with our competitors. And there we are not doing so well.
Rajiv, what do you say about the economy and all the new artificial intelligence-based economy that's descended on us?
I feel that I'm very concerned that there is a new industrial revolution going on, this AI-based industrial revolution with semiconductors that are way beyond anything we can manufacture in the next 20 years, with aeronautics, with avionics, with all sorts of things happening. And this industrial revolution is going to be as dramatic in changing the world power structure as the previous industrial revolution was. And that previous industrial revolution led to the rise of Britain, France, European countries. They became the colonizers and the rest of the world became colonized. And I'm really concerned that now with US and China as the top two colonizers using this new technology, and they will be the second tier will be, Japan and Israel and Russia and France. They will look after themselves. They may not be the world powers, but they will look after themselves. India is currently in the third tier, maybe struggling to join the second tier, but certainly not nowhere close to being possible to be in the first tier. So this business of Vishwa Guru also we have to rethink that it is nice for elections and nice for nostalgia and very emotional people will vote for you and all that. I don't think it is realistic at all to say that we are Vishwa Guru, at all.
And if I may just add something which Rajiv and I discussed, because he's written this very timely book to alert people, which I'm sure now a lot of people have heard of. The only thing that we agreed on, and I think Rajiv actually proposed it as well, is that India must respond to this very serious issue. And I agree with this new industrial revolution. is a mission mode like ISRO to make a dent on this problem. They really, and we are not talking massive amounts of money. We are talking about relatively modest sums to begin a mission mode approach to this problem. I noticed there are things happening in India, Rajiv. I think
Yes.
we'll have
Yes.
there are, but it really has to be. We have to up our game because
Yes.
falling behind in this race will be of enormous consequence.
Yes. And I tell you, the one institution I have a lot of respect for that have taken my work very seriously is the military. The military have invited me any number of times. I've had closed door gathering meetings, conferences, and if I were there, they wanted me to be physically involved in a lot of their, briefings. The military takes this knowledge to heart, and military is appointing all kinds of people, experts to, move this forward. In the next week, again, I'm doing a closed door briefing. But other than the military, Niti Aayog is more on the defensive, trying to protect themselves. The industry is all into licensing foreign stuff and bringing in Google Devata and Facebook Devata and all these foreign Devatas to give them the technology quickly so they don't have to invent their own technology. The academics are kind of small scale, scattered here and there. Some people in IIT doing their best. But India does not have the what is called the fifth industrial revolution, kind of a strategic plan. And it's not just doing some PowerPoints and slick stuff which Indians are good at. It's actually putting money, serious money, creating an ISRO, creating a Bhabha Atomic Research type of organization for this new technology. Unless we do that, we are going to become another colony. That's a very serious statement, but I'm really concerned about it.
You were talking about विश्व गुरु. अगर देखें और तो छोड़ो, संस्कृत की स्कॉलरशिप भी हिंदुस्तान में आज उतने लोग नहीं आते जितने जाएंगे शिकागो यूनिवर्सिटी संस्कृत पढ़ने या फॉरेन यूनिवर्सिटीज में जाएंगे, हाइडलबर्ग में जाएंगे. वहां की डिग्री ज्यादा मैटर करती है. बनारस हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी की डिग्री नहीं मैटर करती उतनी जितनी किसी विदेशी यूनिवर्सिटी. तो संस्कृत स्कॉलरशिप में भी या हमारी जितनी भी एंशिएंट लैंग्वेजेस हैं, तमिल है, तेलुगु है, ये सब एंटिक्विटी वाली लैंग्वेजेस हैं. नथिंग कंपेयर्स विद संस्कृत, बट इवन तमिल, तेलुगु, मलयालम, Sharda, I mean, all these languages, we're doing precious little. Tibetan तक में हमने इन्वेस्ट नहीं किया, जबकि हमारे हजारों प्रेशियस ग्रंथ जो नालंदा वगैरह में जल गए, तिब्बत में टिबेटन लैंग्वेज में बचे हुए हैं. कम से कम वो तो हमें प्रमोट करना चाहिए. तो टू रिकवर दैट नॉलेज through Tibet, coming back to India through Tibet, वो भी नहीं कर रहे हैं. तो विश्व गुरु कैसे बनने वाले हैं मुझे नहीं समझ आ रहा. अपनी भाषाओं को उतना इन्वेस्ट नहीं कर रहे हैं और अंग्रेजी में तो कोई विश्व गुरु बन नहीं सकता है.
I was in Lucknow in 2017 and I was taking to a Sanskrit center which was handsomely funded by the Yogi government. And they were very unconcerned about the other world, English-speaking people, foreign degrees. They were doing their own thing. And they had a very good model of how to increase the number of Sanskrit speakers. So I don't know if that is being repeated anywhere else. But that was a very impressive example of actually a proactive government, Yogi Sarkar. I think their budget was raised from few lakhs to crores. And they actually have a terrific model of how to expand. Now, I just want to add one thing with Rajiv and I have already talked about in great detail in the interaction with the general that we had about his book. This AI issue combined with quantum computing is going to lead us, as Rajiv is also saying, to slavery. Because they will have so much data, such predictive power, they will know before the government what you ate this morning and how you feel. Forget about your voting. This is information which will be used by evangelists, by foreign governments, and problems which today's computers will take 100 years to solve will be solved in 2 hours in a combination of AI and quantum computing. The predictive power of weaponry will go up 100-fold because you will not waste any ammunition. Every weapon will be precise.
So Gautam,
we are in a terrible, terrible situation.
Yeah, Gautam, I would say that your field of economics is being revolutionized with AI in the following way. I asked some people how real time is the data gathering that India does, economic data gathering. And they said this Indian Statistical Institute, they do a survey and they're asking people questions about consumption and this and that. And this survey is not real time. So by the time this survey is collected from various places in India and published, it's a year late. It's kind of, we'll now publish some works on books and publish material in India on what was the economic stuff last year. The real-time data is captured by Google and by Facebook and by online people and by Amazon. The databases that these foreign people have on India, real time, in every village, in every place, what is being bought, what is the consumption level, as in response to certain development, or it could be weather, government policy, COVID, what went up, what went down in this age bracket, that age bracket, women, men, rich people, poor people, every little detail of what is going on in the massive place of India. That real-time capturing of data is all in the digital economy, and this digital economy is not in our hands, and this data is being siphoned off elsewhere. So you see, as an economist, Gautam, I want you to worry that India has not taken control of its own data.
But our database already is very poor. One of the biggest problems of policymakers already is that our database is poor. I'll give you one small example, which will not surprise Rajiv. The father of a family was surprised that a mail shot came about pregnancy goods through his letterbox. He had a daughter of 17, and there was nothing. It later transpired that while the daughter was shopping in a big supermarket, she had paused in front of these pregnancy goods shelf. The camera took her picture. It combined it with the credit card details, and they guessed she was pregnant, and she was pregnant. So they knew before the parents, by simply, this is the data which is going to come and haunt us all. They will already Amazon. I am an Amazon user. They know any more about me than my parents did. I used to always say parents know more than you because they know the first 5 years that you don't remember. But now they know more than you than your parents could ever know.
So this next warfare, the US military has launched a new cell called cognitive warfare. This is a new term, cognitive warfare. And I have gotten a copy of their report, and they're now developing it with NATO, that the future of warfare is going to be cognitive warfare. And in that report, they're also saying that the Russians and the Chinese are already into it. So the three countries that are into this cognitive warfare game are Russia, China, United States, and NATO also. India is nowhere. Not. I mean, we are going to be taken over. I mean, this is serious stuff. And basically we're worrying about next election and coalition. यहाँ वहाँ करके किसकी बदनामी करो, किसके ऊपर FIR डालो. But all that is bullshit. We are the real nation building, the sovereignty that we ought to be worrying about. I don't know who's worrying about it.
In fact, there was so much brouhaha over आधार कार्ड. हमारी privacy चली जाएगी, ये वो. अरे उससे ज्यादा privacy तो आप जब बैंक का क्रेडिट कार्ड बनाते हो या यूएस का वीजा मांगते हो, वो तो आपको strip naked करते हैं. They want your entire family history before they give you a tourist visa. And yet Aadhaar card, which is only asking the most basic information, they made such a brouhaha about it. This is violation of privacy. The only agency that should not have any information about us, including about terrorists, is the government of India. Everybody else can have it.
The Aadhaar card is a prelude to a population census. That is why it was opposed. It begins to give you a good idea of who is here illegally. That is why people.
My dear Gautam da, the Bangladeshi illegal migrants and Rohingyas have 2233 Aadhaar cards already in hand. One with Hindu name, one with Muslim name, one with some other secular name, and they're using it even for love jihad. Okay.
Yes.
And for getting jobs which otherwise would not come. Now, the point that I'm making finally would be this. Firstly, the pace at which the world is moving in the field of diplomacy, as you yourself said, Rajiv, if China is moving at a speed of 80 miles per hour and we moved from 20 to 40, well, we are still nowhere catching. I would say even vis-a-vis Pakistan, the fact that terrorism does not come on the global agenda or G20 agenda anywhere
But Madhu, you will
points
be
to the
delighted to
success of
learn.
Pakistan
But you will be delighted
in
to know.
browbeating us. Who demonizes India so successfully, globally, and within our country? It's Pakistan. And very often, I feel, forget everything else. Many of our political parties have their scripts written by the ISI in Islamabad. I don't think they're even writing their scripts.
Absolutely.
Even
Absolutely.
the issues on which they oppose this or that government or action, it's not their own, because things that they are saying, we never heard such irresponsible, anti-national, anti-Rashtriya statements from any political leader before Modi came to power. And ISI seems to be actually having a veto power on Indian politics, leave alone global politics. So that diplomacy G20 में हमारी क्या औकात होगी राजीव जी?
So
अगर हमारी
I want to say that this is a fantastic conversation, but I have a medical appointment I have to leave. So can we?
wind up.
Can we
You
wind up?
conclude. You
So,
conclude. Your
basic,
concluding comments.
basically, my comment, and you guys should continue talking. But my view is that India is certainly much better off than before. And I think
Yes.
it's not a personal hit on Modi ji. He's done very well. I'm proud of him. He's better than any other prime minister we had. It's just that India, the whole machinery, has not worked at the same level. I'm talking about whether it's Niti Aayog, whether it's the Foreign Affairs Ministry, whether it's the bureaucrats, whoever. All these different kind of things have to be moved along. And Modi ji is not surrounded himself with the best brains available in India. So there's a lot of mediocrity, and one man cannot solve all these problems. So, we are not dumping on one man or blaming one man. I think he's done whatever one man can do, but this is a team effort, and India is not up to the mark to be successful in the years ahead. And I'm not talking about 50 or 100 year. I'm talking about catastrophe. I'm talking about India is going to face sovereignty risks during this decade. And my prediction, which I made in this book, I will repeat, in the second half of this decade, which means from 2025 to 2030, cracks in the security of India, sovereignty of India, people will begin to appreciate, because some of the problems are going to get out of hand. And yes, we are doing whatever good stuff we can, which is good, but it is not enough. So a lot more rethinking out of the box has to be done by India, and time is running out.
May I make a concluding remark?
He's the best prime minister, and I agree, very proactive, all the very good things, yes. But if a prime minister doesn't choose a good team, and their appointments are outrageous, and it's not just mediocrity, very often it's compromised people. I mean, look at the kind of police commissioner we had in Bombay. Yeah, he competes with mafia dons in his criminality. How can such people rise to the top? One of the most crucial police jobs in India is the police commissioner's post of Mumbai city. It's the financial capital. It's also on the sea, facing all these, Dubai and the entire world from where terror networks descend on India. What kind of person rises to the top? What kind of appointments are made? How can Modi ji escape responsibility for outrageously bad choices in key positions of power, be it universities, be it within various ministries, be it not attending to the warning signals and bells you are ringing, Rajiv, on this issue. I'm glad the military is listening. That gives me a lot of comfort. But it should have been the defense ministry, it should have been the PMO who should have called you and said, brief us, let's think together how we can face this challenge. हम तो लिटरेसी मिशन अभी कर रहे हैं. हमारे बच्चे तो they are actually 8वीं class pass, 12वीं class pass, can't write 3 sentences correct in any language of the world. The school system that we've created is out of this world in terms of its shoddiness. And you're talking about a world which I think most Indians won't even be able to make sense of.
Well, I just wanted to add something which will amuse you, Madhu, that in this G20 meeting, I read that our blessed minister, bless his heart, has spoken about gender rights and gender violence as being a key goal. Without, I regard these as important issues, but no mention of the complexity of the family issues, the integrity of the family life, which the West has abandoned. No mention of that. He is repeating what the woke people are saying in the G20. Now, as far as our sovereignty being compromised, Rajiv, I think we are already compromised. We had a foreign veto on CIA. We had a foreign veto on the farm bill. We have a foreign veto on so many issues.
Yes.
So we are already compromised. The question is, how bad can it get? I will only say this. I don't know a great deal about the appointments. I could say something positive about our EAM, External Affairs Minister. I really consider he is pretty outstanding. But the economists around Modi, there are 1, 2, 3 that I know are really world class. I have complete confidence in their integrity and their skills. About the others, I cannot say. The IS officers, I cannot say. But the 3 economists around him, one from Kerala, one from Tamil Nadu, and one from Bengal, are really very, very capable people. And also people who are not compromised in any way. So that much. I do believe beyond Prime
But if
Minister,
your
only
economy
beyond
is
our
going to
government,
run the direction that Rajiv Malhotra is pointing out, see, the
there are
proof
things
of
which
the
puzzle me.
pudding is in the eating of it.
No, there are things
Yes,
about
what
what is
Rajiv
happening
is
that
saying
puzzles me
has economic
nevertheless.
implications. And I believe many of them are good, and I know who you are referring to, and I would agree they are good people, competent, non compromised. However, the challenges that Rajiv is pointing to, are they aware of them? Are they ready to take them on? Because they have
I will ask
seen.
one of them when I visit in December, one particular one. But I also wanted to say something more general, which I think we are all familiar with, and it's so obvious that we don't talk about it, that our populist democracy is very difficult to govern, regardless of who's the prime minister. Our insane populist democracy, which can be manipulated by outsiders, which is manipulated by politicians for immediate short-term advantage, this makes it very difficult to handle. And we picked a very poor constitution to start with, which magnified all our divisions and gave more room for every fissure that existed. And we should have had a presidential system of government where all Indians would be obliged to look at one person as their common leader, not as individual states, not as parochial loyalties. Now, that is too late. The prime ministerial presidential style of government, which Indira Gandhi brought in, is not workable. It only makes the problems worse. But our country is immensely difficult to work. And I know of no leader in world history who has achieved even a third of their goals. Even the great Pericles failed to stop the Athenian war, which he knew was going to be a disaster. He's supposed to be the greatest leader in history. He failed. I think Modi ranks very high, considering what he inherited, considering the problems, and despite all the things we would wish for him. And I say again and again what you've just said, Rajiv said, our narrative and our communication is very poor. And please, हमारे मंदिर को छोड़ दीजिए. Maybe एक ही बिनती है, मंदिर को छोड़ दीजिए.
और ये पोप की गुलामी छोड़ दीजिए, ये जिहादियों की
वो तो
गुलामी
राजनीति
छोड़
है, ठीक है. I'm
दीजिए,
prepared to live with that.
ये
I'm prepared to live with
वो
that.
मदरसों
Not
की
happy, but I'll live
गुलामी
with
छोड़
that.
दीजिए, मदरसों की गुलामी छोड़ दीजिए. ये don't stop funding terrorists. At least that. Stop funding jihadi education. At least that. You're only talking about mandirs. I'm saying this also needs to stop. Rajiv, we've taken more time than you promised. I'm very grateful that you stayed all this while. We'll bring you in again because I enjoy picking your brains and learn a lot from
I'm
them.
so happy that Gautam came. In fact, Madhu invited me a couple of days ago, and I said I'll come, but why don't you get Gautam also?
Yes, I told him.
And I'm so happy, Gautam, that you came. We should do all 3 of us. We should have good conversation. There's so much to talk about.
And we have one person, my dear friend Sai Deepak, the other troublemaker, big time. Sai Deepak, lawyer.
So, Madhu, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajiv. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
I think we won't, since Rajiv is not there, we won't take any questions I don't know if there are ones that are addressed specifically to Rajiv, but friends, thank you for staying with us. Another time we'll bring Rajiv to answer your questions and Gautam da. आज तो
Thank
नहीं
you.
हो पाया, किंतु कल हमारा दिवाली स्पेशल प्रोग्राम है और ज़रूर हमारे साथ जुड़िए. Or please do like, subscribe, and share this channel. And if you become a regular subscriber to the channel, then our bond will deepen and grow. Help this channel grow if you think we are worth it. With these words, आप सबको धन्यवाद, आप सबको नमस्कार. जय हिंद.